The FBI and the Department of Energy have concluded that the likely origin of COVID is from a lab in Wuhan. Jeffrey Sachs of the Lancet Commission studied this for nearly 2 years and came to the same conclusion. 18-month investigation from the HELP Committee also came to the conclusion that the likely origin of the virus is from a lab in Wuhan. What are the conclusions of the Department of Homeland Security on the origins of the virus?
Ranking Member Paul, we defer to other departments and agencies whose remit is to investigate the origins of COVID-19. To my knowledge, that is not work that we have undertaken.
So when all of the different agencies report to the Director of National Intelligence, are you one of those agencies? Like they say, there's 17 different people have an opinion supposedly on this. So the Department of Homeland Security has not made any opinion or given any opinion to the Director of National Intelligence based on any research that you have done?
Ranking Member Paul, to my knowledge, we have not undertaken our work to investigate the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
What we have done in response to what you accurately captured are its tragic consequences is we set up vaccination centers all across the country.
The National Biological Threat Characterization Center is under your purview. Do they investigate or evaluate the manipulation of viruses, either through recombination or mutation or cellular passage, serial passage in lab? Do they look at the threat of dual use? Basically, people say, oh, we're doing research for vaccines, but what if this escapes into the world and you've created a virus that never existed before? Is that under the purview of the National Biological Threat Characterization Center?
Ranking Member Paul, I do believe that that organization looks at how biological elements and other elements can be weaponized to the detriment of our security.
You know, there's at least 12 different places in the United States where labs are getting this. To make it even, more concerning, though, we've been funding labs, not only the lab in Wuhan, we've actually funded military research in China. We now have evidence that NIH money goes to American universities who then subcontract it to the Academy of Military Medical Science Research, AMMS. It's finally now been listed as a category of where we're not supposed to export things, but for years now, somebody's asleep at the switch. Whether it's you or somebody else in government, we got a big government, we got all these different intel agencies, we got who's watching? Because the thing is who in their right mind would think it is a good idea to send American tax dollars to a university, an American university, who then sends it to do military research? Now, even the stuff over there that's civilian research is only as good as we can trust them that that's really what it is. And there's much evidence that there's an intermingling of military and civilian and dual purpose research over there. And so somebody's got to do something here. Somebody's got to step forward. And my suggestion to you is if you've got something called the National Biological Threat Characterization Center, that you'd look at the 12 universities in our country that are doing this kind of research. So basically they're taking a virus and that's known to infect humans, and they're taking a portion of another virus they don't know anything about and saying, well, let's see what happens if we put a new protein on this other virus to see if it's more infectious or more lethal. And quite a few times when they do these experiments, gain of function research, the people within government say, oh, well, nothing to see here. It's not really gain of function. Then they play with the definitions. And yet 1 million people died from something like this. 1 million people died from a leakage of a virus. This isn't the first time. There are dozens or entire books written of leaks. There are probably 100 leaks from U.S. labs that have been documented in the last several years. And yet we have an agency that I think sometimes is talking about things that may not be quite as pressing as 1 million people dying in the homeland. So, my suggestion is that we maybe should take some of our resources. I think you asked for $17 million for this biological threat characterization center. Maybe some of that ought to be used in evaluating some of the dual science and dual purpose research that's going on within the U.S. We would like to get information, and just last week, Senator Johnson and I sent a letter 2 weeks ago asking for any information you have on the origins of this. We passed unanimously, which is something, unanimously in the Senate and the House to declassify this information. But our problem isn't even that. Most of this stuff is declassified, and we get refusals from everybody in the Biden administration. We've been stonewalled for the last 2 years, and we get nothing. We not only get nothing, we have FOIA'd things that a federal judge requires them to release, and we have talk back and forth, chatter on email from people at DITRA saying, well, we're not going to give it to him because one person's signing this, and it looks like he signed it individually, so we're just not going to give it to him. And then we have other people saying in the same email chain, that doesn't look good. If that gets FOIA'd, let's change the language because that doesn't look good. This is our government. We complain about the Chinese not giving us stuff. What I would like today is the assurance that you're going to give us any information we ask related to the origins of COVID. You say there hasn't been much, and maybe there hasn't been, but we would like to get responses to these things instead of responses that say, take a leap. This was the elected government. We were hoping to get help from the other side, but so far we haven't gotten any help from the other side on trying to get these records. But we would hope you would do it just because you care about 1 million people dying. So that's my request, is that you at least will respond to our request asking for more information about the origins of COVID.
Ranking Member Paul, I have a number of things to say. Number one, I share your concern with respect to the threat that the People's Republic of China presents to the homeland, number one. Number two, to my knowledge, DHS has not done, does not have ongoing work, and has no future plan to do work on assessing the dangers that may be associated with gain of function research. My understanding is that no work has been done, no work is planned, and no work is underway. Third, I believe that you have sent to the department a letter requesting information in just a couple weeks ago, within the last 2 weeks, and it is our intention to respond appropriately to your letter.